You heard from a bunch of end users that were all using Kubernetes and cloud-native technologies. We had a bank, financial services company. We had a biopharma company. We had a streaming music company. We also had a generational company like Apple that does a bunch of things. And these are all end users we call in CNCF that are using cloud-native technology in very interesting ways. When we started CNCF, we always wanted to ensure that end users would have a formal voice in the organization, representation on our board, representation on our technical board, and we have a formal program within the CNCF for these organizations to come join, contribute, and learn from each other. So you go scan that QR code, but it is a great program to really learn about cloud-native technology, help build out your teams, recruit great folks from our community. So definitely recommend checking out. We have over 150 organizations here that are represented within the CNCF end user community. Have you heard from some of them today? We also have an end user technical advisory board that consists of a lot of these folks from these different companies, and they have folks from the New York Times, Apple, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, JP Morgan, Intuit, Adobe, Toyota, BlackRock, and CERN. These are all companies that are working together with our technical board and maintainer community to kind of help improve our projects for end users in their kind of unique industries that they work in. So highly recommend participating in the end user community. Sometimes the end user community gets together and helps produce reports and resources available, and today I'm happy to announce the latest tech radar from the end user community is released that has been focusing on developer experience and observability, or OLI for short. So if you go check out the QR code, you can get an in-depth report on kind of what open source projects and technologies that our end users have been using, their experiences and recommendations on adopting them, assessing them, and so on. So please check it out. It's filled with a lot of detailed and fun information. Another thing is a lot of our end users also come from universities and academic environments, and we have formalized an academic accreditation program for academic institutions and universities out there to basically help work with them to improve their curriculum because, look, cloud-native technology, it's sometimes a lot to learn, especially when you're a university student, and it is important and critical for us that we ensure that educational material out there and the next generation, essentially, of cloud-native developers is properly prepared. So if you represent a university, we would love to kind of get you involved. You can learn more about that program by scanning that QR code. So the final thing before I bring out our lovely end user awards is, we had our maintainer summit earlier this week, and we always kind of work with our maintainer community. We talk to our end user members, and recruiting and finding people is always difficult. We essentially have talked to enough maintainers where they like to work at companies that have opportunities for them to also contribute back to our projects, to potentially spend some time working on open source. And we had this old kind of job board that we've created a while back, and we decided to kind of update that and put basically something out there that our community could use, both developers and companies and end users that are looking to hire cloud-native talent. So we have this new board in beta, which you can kind of go look at, and if you're both a maintainer looking for a job that could go work on open source, for example, you go see this job posting from CERN, who is hiring a Kubernetes engineer, where they're gonna go spend 100% of their time working on open source technology, and more importantly, 25% of the time is gonna be allocated to contribute back upstream to Kubernetes, which is super cool. So this is a bit of a beta for us. We wanna work with all y'all to improve this, so please go check this out. So with these announcements kind of done on the end user side, I'd like to kind of bring up some special guests. So earlier, this year, we've kind of made a special announcement about a kind of new organization joining forces with the Linux Foundation that both the CNCF has worked on for a long time, and a lot of our end user companies out there have been using a mix of technologies. So without me kind of rather, spoiling things, I'd rather have an end user come here, talk a little bit about it, and also the organization itself. So I will stop now, and I will go invite Ricardo from CERN, who many of you know, and then Jonathan Bryce from the Open Infrastructure Foundation, talk a little bit about Open Infra joining Linux Foundation and kind of why this is super cool for both end users and the wider open source community. So Jonathan and Ricardo, please come on out.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. Thanks for the welcome. He dropped the news here. The Open Infra Foundation is going to be joining forces with the Linux Foundation. I'm super excited about this for a lot of reasons. We are at a point where there's going to be over $1 trillion building out infrastructure, and I think that this is an amazing opportunity for all of our open source communities to take advantage of this and make sure that this infrastructure is built with open source tools. And I think that it's also really great because it reflects what we have seen from many, many end users who are already bridging across communities and projects to build out great infrastructure in financial services, in tech, in AI, and also in science. So I'm proud to be here today with Ricardo from CERN. CERN has been a long-time user of many, many open source projects. They're a previous Open Infra Super User Award winner, a previous CNCF End User Award winner, and just I think represents some of what happens when we really collaborate just in the biggest possible way.
Yeah, so I'm really happy to be here as well. So I'll quickly go through this picture. So this is actually happened during the OpenStack Summit in 2018 in Vancouver. So CERN has been always trying to scale out our infrastructure and do more with the tools we have. So we had introduced OpenStack back in 2012. We had a large infrastructure. And by 2016, we became Kubernetes users, and we had Kubernetes in production. By 2018, we understood that joining the two would allow us to expand our capacity and be able to do more with the same budget. So in this session, I actually tried my first live demo at the time. Mark in the picture there tried to jinx it, but he didn't manage. So we had a small hiccup, but actually the demo then actually worked. So this allowed us to then understand what we could do with these tools. And this was the message we wanted to pass in 2018 as well. So this is a picture of the Atlas detector at CERN, where we collide beams of protons, but in reality, we produce a lot of data. So to analyze all this data, we have a large infrastructure. You can see there more than 10,000 physical servers, more than 500,000 cores, and a lot of Kubernetes infrastructure on top of it. You can see over almost 600 clusters, tens of thousands of applications, and if you count the scientific computing, this is even larger. So CERN has a long tradition of needing these kind of resources. If we look back, in the 80s, we actually used to even have our own networking stack. It was called CERNnet. I found a plug once next to my office. I was very curious what it was. But then we started using more standards with TCP/IP. In the 90s, we had our own analysis libraries. We also started using other things. In the early 2000s, we started talking about petabytes of data. And this is where things started getting a bit trickier. We started using standard distributions for the OS, like Linux. We had a great keynote from Greg yesterday. But by then, we were still by ourselves. Petabytes of data, I don't know, raise your hand if you had petabytes of data in the early 2000s. Not so many, so we started looking, we have to find something here. And then we built our own custom infrastructure, but then the cloud came. So the early 2010s really opened up the opportunity to start building so much in-house and participate in the much larger communities like OpenStack and the CNCF later. So we really understood this was the way to go. Since then, we've been participating very largely in this. Early 2010s, we talked about hundreds of petabytes of data. What we know now is that we have to scale this 10 times. So what's coming next means exabytes of data. And we know we cannot do this by ourselves. We know we need all of you and all the communities to get together and join forces. So really happy to see this happening and really looking forward to what's coming next. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, it's super cool to hear from a new sister foundation, and obviously, CERN has been a long-time contributor to open source and has used a variety of different technologies, so I think we're stronger together under one roof. So to kind of cap the next portion of our end-user program, so one of my more favorite parts of our kind of KubeCon is when we go and acknowledge and recognize amazing end users who have done really cool things and kind of shared it with the wider community. So we have this end user award program that we've been doing for a while, and before we go too much into those ceremonial things, I'd like to introduce a new member of the CNCF staff who is focused on cultivating and running our end user efforts. So without further ado, I'll go introduce Brian Douglas, who is a new team member on CNCF, and he'll talk a little bit more about himself and the end user program. So let's have Brian come up on stage here. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, folks. I'm Brian Douglas. My friends call me B-Dougie on the internet. I actually know a lot of folks from my previous life at GitHub and other startups. So I am the new head of ecosystems for the CNCF. I work with end user companies to help get their stories and also to help them engage in programs. So everything you need to know about me is at that URL. But one thing I do want to mention is I host a podcast. I host a podcast in a little small city outside of San Francisco called Emeryville. And it's a building. The studio is actually across the street from this small company inside of a bigger mouse company called Pixar. And I found it amazing because the podcast, we actually talk about open source maintainer success stories. It's called The Secret Sauce. And I enjoy it because I get to learn how people got to where they are. And what's interesting about Pixar being across the street is one of the first early success stories of open source happened at Pixar in 1987. Engineer by the name of Bruce Perens found a bug in his software, decided to share that bug, the solution to that bug, on an email message thread, and that was the first success story of open source. And I enjoyed that story because Bruce went on to work on this film, this blockbuster called Toy Story. And what's great about that is Bruce took a toy of fixing a little bug, and now he gets to share the story publicly forever in perpetuity. So speaking of stories, I have the benefit to share a news story with our top end user award. So could you guys humor me by giving me a drum roll? Can you tap on your knees? Excellent. So our top end user award for this year at KubeCon EU is Richard Bang. Please come out.
Hello, good morning, KubeCon. How are you all doing today? My name is Richard Sikang Bian. It's my honor here to present my company and group and all the smart engineers behind the scene who are actually making this moment a reality. So let's have a raise of hand. How many of you have actually heard about Ant Group? Thank you. In fact, I'm not surprised because people actually know us more by knowing our products and services rather than the company name. It's about Alipay, World First, My Bank, and all the financial businesses which are actually making our company a successful one. Our slogan is to bring small and beautiful changes to the world. And that's what we believe in, and that's why the name of Ant matters. So the technology behind the scene is actually what makes all of this a successful story, and we are a firm believer of open technology. So first, we are actually a very serious, large-scale, and cloud-native end user. We use Kubernetes, and we actually built one of the largest Kubernetes single-node clusters on the planet. And we're actually using Harbor, Prometheus, Argo, Dragonfly, Istio, and all of these cloud-native technologies. Furthermore, we're actually a developer community player. All of these names we're seeing here are our developers which are actively contributing on GitHub to our cloud-native technologies. So if you see them in the community, say hi and wave, and we really love working with all of you here. Last but not least, through our work with the community in the past couple of years, we actually began realizing that there are certain aspects of our usage scenarios which can be really beneficial. That's how we began becoming an active contributor and project innovators too. So we have a couple of labels here. As we can see, Dragonfly and Nidus are essentially the project we're currently working on the incubation stage. Last year, we contributed 2 projects, KCL and Cushion Stack, into our CNCF family. And we're also currently working very intensively with our CNAI model format specification as well. And if you want to connect more with our companies, apparently there are still a lot of you who actually doesn't know about the company. Feel free to connect through our websites. And if you want to actually reach out and have a direct conversation, here's our OSPO email and my personal LinkedIn. We're super looking forward to meeting with all of you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Richard. Let me take a picture. Excellent. All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brian. And thank you so much, all. Very nice to be here.